Intermediate English, Program 1. Text 1. Topic, A Quiet Life.
Felix Cat is a typical resident of Siberia Avenue, Surbiton. He looks gloomy, but in fact he is quite happy, and he leads a quiet life in this suburb of London. His wife Gertie looks after him carefully. She cleans the house regularly and feeds him daily on well-cooked meat and tinned vegetables. There is always a supply of fresh water for his whisky and plenty of carpet space for putting practice, so he's very comfortable and content with suburban life. Felix is very fond of his old dog, Sam. They go for walks together on Sundays. Today he is taking Sam to the local vet because he's afraid that he's going blind. However, the vet is confident of curing him by means of a small operation. He's giving Sam an injection before operating on him so that he will sleep peacefully the whole time and not feel any pain. There is even a pretty nurse standing by to comfort Sam in case he feels unhappy and lonely in the strange surroundings. In general, both Felix and Sam think that they don't have a bad life, and they have no desire to change it for anything more adventurous.
Text 2. A date for the theatre.
Hello, Jack. Why the rush? Where are you going?
Hello, Mike. I'm on my way to meet Joyce at the station. We're having dinner at a Chinese restaurant, and then we're off to the theatre.
Do you often go to the theatre?
Yes. Joyce and I usually go at least once a fortnight, sometimes more. Do you ever go?
Yes, but I don't often find time these days. There are so many other things to do.
True, true.
Listen, perhaps Janet and I can arrange to meet you and Joyce one Saturday evening. We can have dinner together and go on to a theatre.
That's a good idea. Look, I forget the name of the play, but there's a good comedy on at the Theatre Royal next week. If you like, I can book 4 seats for next Saturday.
All right. I'm meeting Janet later this evening, so I can make sure that she's free next Saturday. I'll ring you tomorrow to confirm if we are coming.
Fine. I must fly now. It's 6 o'clock already, and Joyce's bus arrives at 10 past. She hates waiting around, and I don't want to spoil everything by upsetting her before we start our evening.
I'll phone you tomorrow then. Give my regards to Joyce. Have a good evening.
Text 3. A picnic.
Exeter 563.
Tim, this is Mary. I hope I haven't woken you up.
Actually, I got up 10 minutes ago, but it's only 8:45. Why are you calling me so early on a Sunday morning?
Because the sun's shining and there isn't a cloud in the sky. And Alan and I are going for a picnic. Do you want to come?
It's true we haven't seen the sun lately, but I expect it'll rain again soon.
No, it won't.
Well, I've got some work to do, but I suppose I could put it off till tomorrow. Where are you thinking of going?
Well, there's a lovely spot by the river on the road to Tiverton. There's a big bend in the road just before you get to Stoke. You leave your car and walk across a field to the left. There are some tall elm trees by the river, and that's where we'll be. It's very easy to find the place.
Yes, I think I know where you mean. I'll come, and I might even go for a swim. Are you taking any food or drink? It's a pity you didn't mention it yesterday. I don't think there's any beer in the house.
Don't worry, we've got some bottles of beer and lemonade, and there's half a chicken in the fridge.
Right then. See you there in about an hour.
Program 2. Text 1. Profile. Peter Parker.
With us in the studio this morning is Peter Parker. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning.
Peter Parker is an English language teacher. He was always good at languages at school, so he decided to take his degree in French and German. When he finished his university studies, he began teaching in a secondary school in England. 2 years later, however, he met someone by chance who offered him a job teaching English to foreign students during the long summer holidays. His students were adults, and he enjoyed the work immensely. He soon found he was more interested in teaching his own language to foreigners than foreign languages to English schoolboys. Since then, he's specialized in this work. He's found that one of the advantages of the job is that it enables him to find work almost anywhere in the world. First, he went to Africa for 2 years, and then he spent a year in Arabia. And after this, he went to Greece, where he's worked for the last 3 years. He hasn't been to South America yet, but he intends to go there next. He's taught men and women of all ages and of various nationalities. He's also learned to get on with all kinds of people and to adjust to different ways of life. So far, he has not regretted his decision to follow this career. Now then, Peter, tell me what you feel about...
Text 2. Holiday plans.
Have you had your holiday for this year yet, Jane?
Not yet. I'm taking it at the end of September.
Where are you going? Have you made up your mind?
Not really. I thought of going to Spain again, but I've already been there twice and I'd like to try somewhere new.
My brother's just gone to Mexico for 2 weeks. I had a card from him yesterday and he seems to be having a good time. Why don't you go there?
That's okay for you well-off people, but I couldn't possibly afford it. I'm much too hard up at the moment.
Well, the airfare is quite expensive, I admit. But you needn't spend a lot when you get there.
I've already spent a lot of money this year. My flat was done up last month, so I haven't got much to spare for expensive holidays abroad.
Oh, I see.
Perhaps I'll just go to Scotland or Ireland in the end. I've heard they're both very beautiful, and I haven't been to either of them.
We went to Ireland 2 years ago to pay Jill and her husband a visit. They're in Dublin now.
Oh, yes, so they are.
If you decide on Ireland, you can call in on them. Jill would willingly put you up for a few days, I'm sure.
That's a good idea. I haven't seen Jill for more than 3 years now, and I'd like to know how she's getting on.
Text 3. The lost tie.
Have you seen my new tie, Mum?
Which new tie?
The red one I bought in London a couple of weeks ago. I wore it to the dinner party at the Dawsons' place on Saturday, and I haven't worn it or seen it since.
No, I don't think I've seen it this week. But have you looked for it properly? I expect you threw it carelessly into the back of the wardrobe after the party, the way you usually do.
I've looked for it everywhere, and it's not in the wardrobe. Have you tidied up my bedroom again and put all my things away in new places where I'll never find them?
I always put your ties away in the wardrobe where they belong, so don't blame me. Are you sure you haven't worn that tie since Saturday?
No, I don't think so.
On Tuesday you went out with Janet, and I think you put it on then. You didn't come in until 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was already in bed. Perhaps you took it off in Janet's house and left it there.
Ah, I remember now. It was a bit hot, and I took my tie off in the car on the way home on Tuesday. I suppose it's still on the shelf under the dashboard.
As usual, you've only got yourself to blame. It's a good job your head is firmly fixed to your shoulders. Otherwise, I'm sure you'd lose that, too.
Programme 3. Text 1. A road accident.
It was raining heavily as I was walking up the hill towards the station at 6 o'clock on a Saturday morning. At this early hour, there wasn't much traffic, and there weren't many people in sight. Just as I was crossing the road near the top of the hill, a car came round the corner. It was travelling very fast, and the driver was obviously having difficulty in controlling it. Suddenly it swerved violently, skidded on the wet road, hit a lamp-post, and turned over. At once I ran to the car to assist the driver, but he was unconscious, and there was a lot of blood on his face. A young woman hurried into the station and phoned for an ambulance, while I took care of the driver. A number of other people gathered round the car, but there wasn't a great deal we could do. A policeman arrived a few minutes later and asked me a lot of questions about the accident. Shortly afterwards, the man came round and he was groaning quietly when the ambulance arrived at high speed and rushed him away to hospital. On Monday morning, I went to the hospital to inquire about the man. They told me that his injuries were not serious after all, and that he was rapidly getting over the effects of the accident.
Text 2. A little gossip.
Good morning, Mrs. Smith. What beautiful weather again.
Yes, lovely. What a splendid summer we've had so far this year.
Yes, but some people are complaining about the heat and grumbling because we haven't had much rain for the gardens.
Some people are never satisfied.
By the way, have you heard that young Patrick Ellis has had another accident in his car?
How awful. Is he badly hurt?
Well, they took him to hospital, but I don't think it was serious because he's coming home again today.
I suppose he was driving flat out again. Only yesterday I was telling Mrs. Taylor how madly he drives, and all his friends are just the same.
I know. What wild things young men are these days.
I've got some news for you, too. Have you heard that Eva Browning is getting married for the 3rd time on September the 10th?
Fancy that! She only got her 2nd divorce in the spring. What a dreadful woman she is.
Her first marriage only lasted 6 months, and that was only in 1972, wasn't it?
Yes, that's right. At this rate, she'll lose count of her husbands before she's 40.
She may lose count, Mrs. Jones, but we certainly won't.
Text 3. A few errands.
I'm just going down to the shops to buy some cigarettes, Gertie. Do you want anything while I'm there?
Yes, what a good idea. There are a lot of things I need, as a matter of fact. Let me see. We haven't got many eggs left, so bring a dozen large ones. And there isn't much cooking fat in the jar, so bring a pound of lard. And...
Hold on. If you want me to get a lot of things, write them down on a piece of paper, or I'll forget something.
All right. But wait a minute while I look in the other cupboard to see what we need.
Hurry up, then. I want to call in for a chat with Jerry on the way back.
We've got plenty of cocoa, but we've nearly run out of coffee, and there isn't a great deal of tea left. Bring a large tin of instant and a quarter pound of tea. Oh, and I want some ham.
How much?
Half a pound will do. We're short of vegetables, too. Bring some beans and a tin of carrots.
I only wanted to go out for a stroll and a chat. I need a lorry to bring all that home.
Here's the list. Oh, and you can pick up my coat at the dry cleaners while you're passing. And do me a favour while you're at Jerry's. Ask Pam if she's free on Thursday morning. We're having a meeting at 10 o'clock about the tennis club dance in August.
Do you mind if I have half an hour to myself after I've done all your business?
Programme 4. Text 1. Work and play.
I'll tell you about my 2 sons, as you asked in your last letter. Malcolm has been working very hard all this year, because he's sitting some examinations this month, and he's determined to win a scholarship to study history at the University of Oxford. Although the sun has been shining all day today, he has been sitting at home reading about the history of the French Revolution. Fortunately, he adores books, especially history books, and he isn't interested in games. In any case, he hasn't enough time for sport, as he spends all his time and money on books. His younger brother James is totally different. He's bored with school and studying, but he's very keen on games. He loathes books, especially the books they oblige him to read at school. He never stays indoors when the weather's reasonably fine, and today he's been playing tennis for hours with his friends. He's fond of football, but tennis is his favourite sport. And although he's only 16, he's the school champion, and he's already won several tournaments. When he's old enough, he hopes to become a professional player, so he spends a lot of time practicing and trying to improve his game. His mother doesn't really approve. Anne has been busy lately, making some patterns.
Text 2. Career prospects.
How have your 2 sons been doing at school lately, Andy?
Terrible. James never starts working and Malcolm never stops working.
You're joking, of course. I hear that Malcolm is likely to win all the prizes in the exams this year.
Yes, so his teachers say. But he deserves to do well. He's always been so conscientious and hard-working. And he's been slaving at his books every evening for months on end recently. He wants to go to Oxford University next year.
Maybe he'll become a university lecturer himself eventually.
Maybe. But I think he studies too hard. I sometimes wish he'd go out and enjoy himself for a change.
Yes. What about the younger one?
Well, James' teachers say that he has ability, but that he's too inconsistent, and that he rarely does his best. In other words, he's not bad when he makes an effort, but he's too idle. He couldn't care less about exams. He does his homework in 10 minutes every evening and then rushes out to play tennis.
He's crazy about tennis, isn't he? Perhaps he can make his fortune at it. You can make more money from sport than from an old-fashioned profession these days.
So I believe. But my wife always worries about the children's future. She wants James to give up tennis and study law. But I don't believe in forcing boys to take up careers they're not cut out for. I wonder how James will develop in a couple of years' time.
Text 3. After the exams.
What did you think of the exams, Pete? I reckon they were dead easy.
Maybe they were easy enough for you, but they were much too hard for me.
Oh, come on. You've probably done better than you think.
No, I'm dead certain I failed in Latin, and most likely in French and history too. Thank goodness it's all over, though. We can forget about it now, at least until the results come out.
Yes. Now I can get on with reading all the books I've been wanting to read for months but haven't had time for.
What? Well, it's up to you, I suppose, but I've had enough of reading. I'm not going to open another book for months. Don't you think we all deserve a break?
Well, yes. I'll take a day or two off, perhaps. And I think I'll come to Bob's sister's party tomorrow night. But if I'm going to university in October, I'll have to get down to some serious work again pretty soon.
I've got to get through the A-level exams first. I'll worry about university if and when I ever get there.
That's the trouble with you. You always try to do everything at the last minute.
And you're too serious. That's your trouble. You never stop swatting.
Well, I like reading.
And I can't stand it. I don't know why I decided to try to go to university in the first place. I think I'll run away and join the army or something.
Programme 5, Text 1. An informal invitation.
35 Manor Road, Harpole, Portsmouth, the 30th of August. Dear Bob, I'm just writing to let you know our new address and to invite you to our housewarming party next Saturday. I'm sorry about the lack of warning, but we've been busy moving house and I've had little time for anything else. In any case, we only decided to hold the party last week when we found out that the cost of moving was not as high as we had reckoned and that we had a little cash to spare. We moved in here 2 days ago, and we've been working non-stop ever since. This evening we decided to have a few hours' rest, so I'm writing a few invitations to some friends. You can do the trip from Oxford to Portsmouth in 2 hours now the motorway is open. Harpole is rather difficult to find, though, because it's a new housing estate, and few people know where it is. Give us a ring when you're in the area, and I'll give detailed directions to you then. Our number is 7453. Barbara and I hope you can make it in spite of the short notice. All the best, Charles. P.S. We can fix you up with a place to sleep. I imagine you can put up with a mattress on the floor.
Text 2. Detailed directions.
Harpole 7453.
Hello, Charles. This is Bob. You were quite right in your letter. Very few people have any idea where Harpole is. I've asked half a dozen people so far without success.
I guessed you'd have difficulty. Where are you now?
I'm in a telephone box outside a post office at a crossroads about a mile from the end of the motorway.
Okay, listen carefully then. Carry on along the road towards Portsmouth until you go down a steep hill. Take the turning to the left at the bottom of the hill. There's a pub called the Green Man on the right just before the turning.
I've got that. Go on.
The road winds through a small village, over a bridge, across a river, and then under a railway. Just after the railway bridge, the road forks. Take the left-hand fork...
Slow down a bit. I'm trying to write this down. I'll never remember all that.
I've nearly finished. After about a mile, you'll drive through a wood, and as you come out of the wood, turn right and go up the hill to Harpole. Manor Road is the second turning on the left, and our house is at the end on the right. You'll see my car, the dark blue Rover, parked outside.
I suppose I'll find it. But if I'm not there by midnight, send out a search party.
Text 3. Arranging the house.
Give me a hand with this sideboard, Charles. I want it over there by the settee.
Don't you think it would be better under that picture by the armchair?
No. The picture isn't staying there anyway. I only hung it on the wall because it was in the way on the floor. We can arrange the pictures when all the furniture is in place.
Where did I put my big screwdriver? It's not in the toolbox, and I want to tighten up these loose screws on the door hinges.
You had it in your hand when you went into the kitchen just now. Perhaps you left it there.
Yes, I think I put it down on the shelf above the sink. I'll go and fetch it.
Pass me that brush behind the chair before you go. And take your tools off that nice polished table. You'll spoil all our furniture before you finish.
Don't keep on nagging. I've got to put them somewhere. By the way, have you seen the cat this morning? You didn't shut him outside last night, did you? He'll get lost.
No, he's definitely inside the house. I expect he's fed up with all the fuss and noise. He's probably crept into a cupboard somewhere and gone to sleep.
That's just what I'd like to do. I'm tired of it all as well.
Programme 6. Text 1. Saturday night thoughts.
Now, where are my pyjamas? It's Sunday tomorrow. I usually sit around and do nothing on Sundays, but tomorrow I'm going to make a special effort. I'm going to get up early and see to lots of jobs that I've been meaning to do for ages, but just haven't got round to. First of all, I'm going to cut the garden hedge, and then I'm going to dig the weeds out of the vegetable patch and plant some cabbages and onions. If I have time after that, I'll mow the front lawn before lunch. In the afternoon, I'm going to polish the car and give it a service. The car needs a service badly, but I'm not going to take it to the garage because labour costs are so high nowadays. There's no point in wasting money, and why pay someone to do a simple job when it costs you nothing to do it yourself? I phoned Ted, and since he's at a loose end tomorrow, he'll come round as soon as he finishes lunch and we'll work on the car together. We've agreed that he'll help me with my car this week, and in return, I'll go round to his place next Sunday and help him paint his garage. Oh, well, into bed.
Text 2. The expert's fee.
That's the cleaning finished, Ted. It looks almost brand new now.
Shall we adjust the clutch and check the brakes?
OK, and then I'll change the spark plugs. We won't be long now.
Will you pass me that spanner, please, Ron? No, not that one. The big one behind your left foot.
Here you are.
Your front tyres are nearly worn out, Ron. Had you noticed?
No, I hadn't. I'll buy 2 new ones tomorrow.
I've checked the oil level. I'll just look at the battery now. There's no water. Shall I fill it up?
Yes, please. But get a move on, Ted. It's going to rain in a minute.
Start the engine then, Ron.
Funny. It won't start. I wonder what's up with it.
Look, there's Sid Greenham over there. He'll know what's wrong. Shall I ask him?
All right.
Will you come and see what's up with my friend's car, Sid? We can't make it start.
I'll put it right for you in a jiffy. But I'm a professional mechanic, and it'll cost you £1.
All right. Go ahead.
Just disconnect these 2 wires, change them around like this, and connect them up again. Now the engine will start with no trouble.
£1 for that? It only took 20 seconds.
Ah, but you've paid for what I know, not for what I've done.
Text 3. The suspect.
Good evening, sir. I'd like to ask you a few questions, if you don't mind.
By all means, officer. Only too glad to help if I can. But I know nothing about it.
About what?
About the murder that someone committed next door 2 nights ago, of course.
Did you hear anything unusual that night?
Oh, no. I heard nothing at all.
Did you see anything out of the ordinary?
No, I saw nothing, officer.
Did you speak to anybody that evening?
No, nobody. I was sitting here watching television. I was minding my own business.
So murder isn't your business, sir. Someone fired 6 shots with a revolver, but you heard nothing. A man ran through that door 5 minutes after the crime, but you saw nothing and spoke to no one. Yet you say you sat in that chair the whole evening and went nowhere. It all sounds very suspicious to me, sir. Have you anything to add?
Nothing at all.
Then I have no more questions to ask. But you won't get away with it.
What was that?
We shall proceed. Programme 7. Text 1. Topic: UK elections.
Next month, the people of the United Kingdom will be voting in a general election, and shortly the seemingly interminable political speeches and debates on radio and television will be underway. If the Labour Party succeeds in its attempt to increase the slender majority of seats in the House of Commons that it won at the last election, it will be introducing radical new measures, including widespread nationalisation of private industry, in an effort to rescue Britain from threatening economic problems. The Conservatives, the main opposition party, will be hoping to convince the nation of the need for encouraging private enterprise, They have hopes, if the people unite under a Conservative government, of overcoming such evils as inflation, food shortages, fuel crises, and a possible worldwide slump. The Liberal Party will be trying to persuade the voters that Britain can achieve economic stability and industrial prosperity only under Liberal leadership. Meanwhile, the Scottish and Welsh nationalists may be urging the citizens of Scotland and Wales to vote for their complete independence from England and the Parliament at Westminster.
Text 2. In luck.
I hear you've got a transfer to the new office in Rome for a few months, Steve. How did you manage that? Who pulled strings for you?
No one. I was just lucky. I happened to be in Mr. Barrett's office when he was talking to the big boss from the States about it. They said they wanted to send someone who could get by in Italian, so I mentioned that I'd picked up a bit on holiday in Italy and learned some more at night school, and finally they said I could go.
When will you be setting off?
On Monday morning. But I'm taking 2 weeks' holiday before starting work. I'll be spending a few days in Germany and a week in the Alps near Mont Blanc with a friend, where we're doing some skiing together.
Will you be travelling by air?
No, I'm taking the car. I'll be staying Sunday night in London at the Victoria Palace Hotel, picking up my friend at Victoria Station on Monday morning, and then making for the Dover-Ostend ferry.
Roll on Monday, then.
Yes. Just imagine. At this time on Monday, I'll be heading across the Netherlands on my way to Germany, the Alps, and the sunny Mediterranean.
And I'll be sitting here in Birmingham sweating over the correspondence. And it'll probably be pouring with rain, too.
Never mind. Perhaps they'll open a new office in Mallorca or the Canary Islands, and your turn will come.
With my luck, they'll probably send me to the Sahara Desert. Anyway, I am off. It's gone 5 and my girlfriend will be waiting for me outside. And she won't wait long.
Now it's my turn to envy you. I'll be doing overtime until 8 o'clock tonight while I sort my office out.
Don't work too hard. Have a good trip. And don't drive too fast.
I won't. Cheerio, Terry.
Text 3. Sea or air?
Are you looking forward to your trip to Canada, Julie?
I can't wait to see Canada, Susan, but I'm scared stiff of the journey. My husband insists on flying, but I want to sail. Planes make me nervous.
There's nothing to be frightened of. How many planes fly across the Atlantic every day?
I've no idea. Hundreds, I suppose.
And how often do you hear of a crash? Once or twice a year?
Yes, but aeroplanes fly so high and fast that once is enough.
Look, there are more road casualties per day than air deaths per year. Air transport is really safe compared with road transport.
I'd still prefer to go by sea. Ships may not travel fast, but at least you can relax. I'd love a trip on a luxury liner like the Queen Elizabeth II.
It's fine if you're a good sailor. But have you ever travelled far in a rough sea?
No. I've only been in a boat once. I sailed down the River Thames on a sightseeing tour. But in any case, I'd rather be seasick than dead.
Programme 8, Text 1. A matter of habit.
I never used to go anywhere without the car. I regarded it as an essential part of myself. But when the price of petrol doubled in 1 year, I resolved not to use the car except when absolutely necessary. For example, I always used to take the car when I went to fetch the papers on Sunday mornings, although our newsagent's is only 10 minutes walk away. Now, I go on foot. I tell myself that I'm not only economizing on petrol, but keeping fit at the same time. It's all a question of habit, really. I'm sure you can get used to anything if you try, and I already feel that I rely on the car less than I used to. Besides, now that we live in the suburbs, I can walk down the road and catch a bus to the office or to any other part of the town. We used to live in the country about 15 miles from town, and then I would frequently drive to and fro twice in 1 day. That meant I would use 15 gallons of petrol and more in a week. Now, I need half that amount. The trouble is that I'm also getting used to the petrol prices. They don't seem so very high to me anymore. Perhaps it's easier to get accustomed to expensive petrol than it is to doing without the car.
Text 2. A helpful neighbour.
I just brought your ladder back, Mr. Fielding. Thanks for lending it to me. Where shall I leave it?
Just lean it against the wall there. How are you settling down in the new house?
Oh, fine, thanks. All the neighbours have been very kind. We think we'll be very happy here.
I'm sure you'll soon feel at home. Use the ladder again any time.
Thanks. Do you mind if I borrow one of your drills?
They're all my drills. Which one do you want?
Anyone will do. I only want to drill some holes in the wall to put up some shelves.
Well, take the electric one. It bores holes through anything.
How does it work? I don't want to ruin it.
It's child's play. Anyone can use it. You just plug it in and press this switch. Release the switch and it stops again.
I'll need some long screws as well. They're out of stock at Smith's hardware stores. Do you know where I can buy some?
Try Thorne's in Paul Street. You can usually find anything you want there. Hang on a minute, though. I've got lots of screws in that tin there. Help yourself, if there are any the right size.
That's very generous of you, Mr. Fielding. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Mr. Williams. Always glad to oblige a neighbour.
Text 3. The Commuter.
How are things, Ron?
Not bad, Jane. I'm involved in too many problems, and it's a long working day, but I'm used to that, so it doesn't bother me too much.
How do you like commuting to London every day? Don't you find it a strain?
It was ghastly at first, especially getting up before dawn to catch that 6:30 train, but it's bearable now that I'm used to it.
Don't you think it's an awful waste of time? I couldn't bear to spend 3 hours sitting in a train every day.
I used to feel the same as you, but now I quite enjoy it.
How do you pass the time?
In the morning, I just sit in comfort and read the papers to catch up with the news. On the way home at night, I relax with a good book, or have a nap, or chat with friends, or even have a game of bridge.
I suppose you know lots of people on the train now.
Yes, I bump into someone I know on the platform every day. Last week, I came across a couple of old school friends, and we spent the entire journey in the bar.
It sounds like a good club. You never know. I may join it.
Programme 9, Text 1, Blunders.
English homework, James Fielding, Professor Bumble. Professor Bumble is not only absent-minded, but short-sighted as well. His mind is always busy with learned thoughts, and he seldom notices what is going on around him. One fine day recently, he went for a stroll in the countryside. But as always, he had a book in his hand, and he had no sooner set out for his walk than he became engrossed in reading. He hadn't gone far when he bumped into a massive cow and fell down. He had lost his spectacles in the fall, and he thought he had stumbled over a fat lady. "I beg your pardon, madam," he said politely, before searching for his glasses. As soon as he had put them on, he realized his mistake. Soon he was concentrating on his book again, and paying no attention to anything else. He had scarcely been walking for 5 minutes when he fell over again, losing both his book and his glasses. This time seizing his umbrella, he struck the cow in anger. Then, after finding his glasses, he realized with horror that he had made a second blunder. A large fat woman was fleeing from him in terror.
Text 2. Loyal fans.
What did you think of the game, Bill?
Dreadful. It was neither exciting nor skillful.
I agree with you. Of course, the weather didn't help. They'd hardly kicked off when it started to pelt with rain. Our team are useless in the mud. And they were off form anyway.
Some of our team can't play football in either wet or dry conditions. And I've never seen them on form. I can't help laughing when I watch old Ford. Every time he gets the ball, he either falls over or passes it to the opposition. I can't make out why they pick him.
He's too old, really. He'd already been playing in the team for about 10 years when I became a supporter. And that was 8 years ago.
Evans isn't much better. He's not only too slow, he's scared to tackle as well.
Yes. He's always afraid of getting injured. Neither Ford nor Evans is up to it. We need 2 new defenders and a new forward, too.
But the management is too mean to spend money either on new players or on improving the ground.
Yes, that's true. The pitch is a disgrace. It isn't flat and the drains don't work. Every time it rains, the pitch is covered with great puddles of water.
What we need, Ted, is not only new players, but a new manager and a new pitch as well. Then perhaps we could win promotion to the 3rd division.
Text 3. Linguistic talent.
Why weren't you at the German class last night, Joan? Have you given up?
Well, no. I came back late yesterday and found Simon asleep in the chair. He'd been writing reports all day long, and he was too worn out to go out again, so we gave the lesson a miss.
You've missed quite a lot of lessons lately, haven't you? Are you losing your enthusiasm?
Yes, I'm afraid so. Neither Simon nor I have a gift for languages. People just laugh at us when we attempt to speak German. How did you and Eric pick it up so quickly and easily? You've hardly been in Germany a month.
It was neither quick nor easy, I assure you. We both studied the language before we came, and we only needed to brush it up a bit.
Anyway, all our friends here speak English fluently, so we don't really need to learn German.
Well, Eric and I have been both learning and teaching languages for years, and we enjoy it immensely.
Well, keep it up. I'm all for teaching foreigners English, if it saves me the trouble of learning foreign languages myself.
Program 10. Text 1. Get well soon.
21 Stewart Road, Portsmouth, 9th of September. Dear Auntie Ivy, we were very sorry to hear that you are back in hospital again, but I feel sure you'll be out and about again soon. It doesn't sound very serious this time, according to Uncle Tom, and in any case you always recover from operations so quickly. We hope you'll come and stay with us for a while as soon as you feel well enough to travel. Robin started school last week, and I'm just getting accustomed to having some time to myself during the day, while Trevor's at work and Robin's at school. The house seems very quiet and peaceful without Robin. Luckily, he doesn't object to going to school. On the contrary, he appears very happy there. In the morning, a neighbour takes him to school, together with a little boy, and I go to the school to meet them and bring them home again. If we lived a little nearer, we would come to the hospital to see you. But anyway, you know we'll be praying for you. Trevor sends his love and wishes you a speedy recovery. We're all looking forward to hearing from you and seeing you soon. Lots of love.
Text 2. Service, please.
Mum, hurry. Can I have my lunch right away? We're going to Sheldon for a game of golf. The boys are picking me up at 1 o'clock, and I promised to be ready on time. Gosh, it's 20 to 1 ready. Is that clock right?
No, it's 10 minutes fast. It's not quite 12:30 yet. But it doesn't make any difference. I've just put our lunch in the oven, and it won't be ready for more than half an hour.
It smells marvellous. Is it ham and egg pie? I can't wait for that now, though. Put some by for me, and I'll have it this evening. What can I have straight away? I'm starving.
I can make you a mushroom omelette in 5 minutes. Or you can have what's left of this pork pie. It looks a bit stale, though. Try a bit first.
It doesn't taste too bad. I'll have this with some cheese and tomatoes. It's not much of a lunch, but at least I'll be ready in time.
I'm used to your racing in and out and expecting a meal within 5 minutes. But this is not a restaurant with a 24-hour service, and I'm not a magician. You just have to take pot luck if you can't make your arrangements in advance and give me some warning of your movements.
Well, it's a rotten restaurant, and I'm going to complain to the manager. If I die of food poisoning, they'll put you in prison for years.
Text 3. The season of change.
Good evening, Mrs. Jones. It's become quite chilly all of a sudden, hasn't it?
Yes, I think the summer is over at last and winter's underway.
The nights are certainly drawing in. It gets dark soon after tea time now. I suppose we'll be lighting the fires again in a few weeks.
I'm really looking forward to sitting by a blazing coal fire again. I don't mind the winter nights as long as the house is cosy and warm, and I adore the crisp, fresh autumn air.
So do I. I much prefer autumn and winter to summer. I can't stand the heat. Do you remember that heat wave we had in July? It got so hot that I couldn't go to sleep at night, and the milk turned sour before you could put it in the fridge.
I used to love the summer, but now I'm growing older, I like it less and less.
Well, we're all getting older, there's no doubt about that. The summers seem to flash past faster and faster every year.
Have you noticed the old oak trees in the lane? The leaves have turned yellow already. They look quite beautiful.
When the leaves change colour, everyone says how beautiful they look. My hair was yellow once, and now it's going grey, but no one says it looks beautiful anymore.
Never mind, Mrs. Smith. The trees will be losing their leaves in a few weeks. At least you aren't going...
7. Text 1. Topic: a new motorway.
For some years now, work has been in progress on the new motorway connecting the heavily populated industrial Midlands to the holiday resorts on the coasts of southwest England. The general increase in traffic density, and in particular the mass migration of holidaymakers who flock to the south every July and August in search of a fortnight's peace at the seaside, has strained the old road system beyond its limits. Car drivers frequently have to endure hours of waiting in long queues of vehicles before finally crawling to their destinations. Some sections of the new motorway are already in use, and soon half of this much-needed stretch of tarmac will be open to traffic. Before the end of next year, the numerous construction gangs engaged in this work will have completed the entire project, and at last there will be peace for the inhabitants of the countless villages and small towns along the narrow, winding old roads. The new road will have freed them forever from the constant deafening roar of high-powered engines and from the air pollution caused by dense exhaust fumes. The completion of the road will be a relief even to the workmen. Some of them will have been working on the project for over 7 years by the time...
Text 2. A dog's life.
I hear you're finally retiring at the end of the year, Bill. What will you do with yourself when you've stopped work?
Absolutely nothing. I'll have been working for this company non-stop for 40 years by the end of October, and I reckon I deserve a complete rest.
40 years. You'll have seen a lot of changes in that time, I imagine.
Yes, and most of the changes have only made things worse. I used to be proud of my work, but how can you take a pride in what you're doing when every 2 or 3 years they put a new manager with new-fangled ideas in charge of the factory? And he tells you what you've been doing is all wrong.
Why have you stayed on all these years then, Bill?
Well, it's the same thing wherever you go. However well you do your job, you don't get on in any firm unless you're a friend of the manager's. And the present manager has certainly been no friend of mine.
Nonsense. You're exaggerating, Bill. They don't promote you, whoever you know, if you're inefficient.
Rubbish. What about that young chap, Dart? He's an assistant manager already, and he's completely incompetent. He's only there because he's a relative of the managing director's. They'll probably make him a director soon.
By the sound of it, you won't be sorry to leave.
No, I won't. But it'll be no better at home. Instead of the manager giving me stupid orders, my wife will be telling me off all day long.
Text 3. A sobering thought.
I've just come across an old photograph album of my mother's in this drawer. Come and have a look, Mike.
Gosh, is this a picture of you as a baby? You were quite cute then. It's a shame you've grown up.
Don't be nasty. Look, here's a photo of my sister Paula when she was still in the 4th form at school. That's an old boyfriend of hers beside her.
She looks a bit young for boyfriends, but I suppose she takes after you. You always used to have a different boyfriend whenever I saw you in those days.
Look who's talking. I remember looking through some of your old photos a while ago, and I found a whole collection of pictures of different girlfriends of yours.
Look, here's an old photo of your mother. Didn't she look like you then?
Yes, everyone says we're very alike.
What a ridiculous hat she's wearing.
It's not ridiculous at all. It was the height of fashion then.
Something has just occurred to me. If your mother looked like you 20 years ago, you'll probably look just like her in 20 years' time.
So?
Well, look, a picture of young David.
Programme 12. Text 1. Topic: North Sea oil.
As the summer draws to a close, the oil companies remain optimistic about the prospects of oil flowing ashore from new rigs in their North Sea fields before their target dates next autumn. Assuming no unexpected snags arise, they will accomplish their aim. They have settled disputes and strikes among the men and overcome various technical and political problems. But recently, the elements have caused the worst hold-ups. Abnormally high seas and howling gales have prevented engineers from lifting essential heavy equipment into position on the production platforms erected off the Scottish coast. If this spell of exceptional weather continues throughout the autumn, it will be necessary to stop work until next spring, for the oilmen know from experience that major operations are impossible in the winter months owing to the stormy seas. They are confident, however, that they will achieve their object, provided the weather breaks for just one day during the next few weeks. The British government is also eager for the timely completion of these operations. Britain's economic position will deteriorate, many think, unless revenue from the oil rescues her from her continuing balance of payments problems.
Text 2. A lonely job.
Wherever have you been, Patrick? I haven't seen you for months. Someone said you'd emigrated.
Whoever told you that? I've been working on a weather research station on the Isle of Collet.
Where on earth is that?
It's a lump of rock about 100 miles northwest of Ireland.
Oh, whatever did you do to pass the time?
Fortunately, I had my university thesis to work on. If I hadn't had a pile of work to do, I'd have gone off my head.
Was there anything else to do?
Well, if you were a bird watcher, it would be a paradise. But whenever I got tired of studying, I could only walk round the island, and that took me less than 20 minutes.
However did you stand it? If I'd been in your shoes, I'd have taken the first boat back to civilization.
Well, I needed some information for my research there, and they paid me, so I saved some money. Now I can have a short holiday before I start looking for a job.
Have you finished your PhD already? I thought you had another year to do.
No, time flies, you know. As long as I don't reject my thesis, I'll be leaving for London next week.
If I were you, I'd go off to the Mediterranean or somewhere before starting work.
No thanks. I'll stay in London. I've had enough of the sea for a while.
Text 3. Loyal fans.
Hello, Bill. Are you ready yet?
Oh, come in, Ted. Is it 2 o'clock already? I haven't finished my lunch yet, but I won't be long.
We'll miss the kick-off unless you hurry.
Take a seat for a minute. If we miss the kick-off, it won't really be a tragedy, will it? I don't suppose the game will be worth watching anyway.
Probably not. But I bet if we arrive 5 minutes late, they'll score the only goal of the game before we get there.
And if we arrived early, they wouldn't score any goals at all. I don't know why we persist in going to watch them every other Saturday.
We wouldn't know what to do if we didn't go, would we?
They're bound to lose again, unless there's a miracle.
I don't know. They've dropped old Ford and picked that youngster Wade in his place. Perhaps they'll win if they strike form.
If they strike their usual form, they'll lose 5-0 against this team. They've already lost at home twice this season. But let's get a move on. We'll be late.
Programme 13. Text 1. The comparison game.
Letters to the editor. Sir, society has always been competitive, but in this century, life is perhaps more competitive than in any previous era. We are taught, almost from birth, to compare ourselves in mind and body with the people around us. Even as children, we are already intent on showing that we are not merely different from our fellows, but in some way superior to them. School life is an eternal competition. Every day, each child tries to prove that he is more intelligent than the next child, and every term, marks are added up to find the best as well as the worst child in the class. On the sports field, the process continues. The child now strives to demonstrate that he is faster, stronger, or more skillful than his classmates. Our jobs, our possessions, and even the areas in which we live become a matter of competition. We make out that our jobs and positions are somehow better or more desirable than other people's, and we claim that our country, town, or village is the best, the biggest, the most friendly, or the most civilized in the world. Are we interested in proving our superiority, or is it that we take a sadistic delight in proving that some poor fellow being is inferior to us? Concerned, Tunbridge Wells.
Text 2. More gossip.
Hello, Mrs. Smith. Any news?
Nothing much. It's been so cold that I haven't been outside for a week. I do hate the cold.
Yes, it's best to stay indoors in such beastly weather. You noticed that the new people have arrived at number 35, though, surely?
Yes, I did notice that, but I haven't met them yet.
I called on them yesterday. They seemed such nice people at first, but now I'm not so sure.
Really? Why?
Well, they're from London, and they think it's the only place in the world worth talking about. The wife made some very catty remarks about this area.
Londoners always think they're better than other people, but I always find them less cultured. What does she look like?
Quite young and pretty, but she does wear a lot of makeup, and she certainly dyes her hair. Perhaps she isn't as young as she looks.
Anyway, I don't want to mix with people like that. I knew they would be snobs when I saw that huge car. Surely they don't need such a big one.
No. Still, my husband says it's 4 years old and it probably costs less than ours second-hand. And ours is certainly as fast as theirs.
My husband would never buy a car like that. It uses so much petrol you can hardly afford to run it. But surely your car is 4 years old too, Mrs. Jones. Our car is the newest of the three.
It certainly isn't. Ours is the same age as yours.
Text 3. A new competition.
I'm fed up with studying and exams. I've a good mind to give up everything, become a dropout and join a hippie group somewhere.
That's not a bad idea. I'm sick of work myself. We could forget about the cost of living, the price of houses, keeping up with the neighbours and all the rest of it. Shall we go and live on the beach at St. Ives?
Can't we look for a warmer climate? Anyway, I'd like to go further away than that.
Well, it does get a bit cold and damp in St. Ives. Let's hitchhike across Europe and find some lovely lonely island in the farthest corner of the Mediterranean. We can start our own hippie colony there.
Great idea. We'll create a society with no exams and with no competitions to see who can make the most money and build the most luxurious house and drive around in the most expensive car.
Yes. We'll start a new competition to see who can live with the least money, the fewest possessions and the smallest house.
You can't get away from competitions of some sort, can you, John?
Programme 14. Text 1. Topic. Flats in the clouds.
Blocks of high-rise flats have been erected in large numbers in London and in many other big cities. Just after the Second World War, these immense 20 to 30-storey buildings, hundreds of feet in height, were thought to be the ideal solution to the dual problem of acute housing shortage and lack of space in urban areas. At first, the ultra-modern apartments were much sought after by city dwellers, and hundreds of the vast blocks had been built before anyone began to doubt that they were suitable places for people, children especially, to live in. A well-known British architect, who personally designed many of these buildings, now believes that they may well have inflicted a great deal of suffering on those people who have been housed in them, and evidence has been amassed by sociologists which suggests that severe loneliness and deep depression are brought about by life within these great towers. Some psychologists even maintain that an unduly large proportion of their inhabitants suffer from mental disorders and develop criminal tendencies. As a result of the recent queries, plans for new high-rise blocks are being scrapped. They are going to be replaced by so-called low-rise blocks, at most 6 stories high.
Text 2. The new pool.
Have they finished work on your new swimming pool yet, Charles? When I passed by yesterday, it was being filled with water, wasn't it?
That's right. We had our first swim in it this morning. The concrete path around it is going to be widened, but everything will have been completed before the end of the week.
You must be pleased. How long is it?
It's only 25 feet long and 15 feet wide, but that's big enough to cool down in, isn't it?
And to get a spot of exercise in. If you normally swim 20 lengths in a big pool, you can get the same benefit if you swim up and down 40 or 50 times in a small one, can't you?
Yes, but I'm hardly aiming at getting into the Olympic team, am I?
How deep is it? You can't dive into it, can you?
Oh, yes, you can. It's 8 feet in depth at one end. The diving board will be installed tomorrow. By the way, we're holding a swimming party on Sunday if it's not too cold. You will come, won't you?
I'd love to come, but I'm not much of a swimmer, and I can barely dive at all. I'll probably drown.
Well, I'm hardly the world's best swimmer myself. Anyway, there'll be plenty to drink.
Good. I'd rather drown in beer than in water.
Text 3. Out of luck.
I suppose you heard about that great chunk of concrete falling onto a car in South Street yesterday, didn't you, Ted?
Yes, I saw it in the paper. From a 250-foot-high building, wasn't it? I gather the driver had just got out, or he'd have been killed, wouldn't he?
Oh, yes. I saw the car. It was a complete wreck.
You usually park your car round there, don't you, Bill?
Yes, I left it in that very spot a couple of days ago, but yesterday it was parked up the road a bit.
You were in luck then, weren't you, Bill?
Out of luck, you mean? I'd be very pleased if my old car was smashed to bits. I could claim from the insurance company then, couldn't I?
But you used to be so proud of your car, didn't you, Bill?
I used to be years ago, but now there are all sorts of repairs to be done, and I just haven't got enough spare cash to put it right.
You can always sell it, can't you, Bill?
Few people are stupid enough to buy a car in that state, are they?
The chap whose car was crushed yesterday was very annoyed about it. He'll be given a new car by the builders, though.
Yes, but his car was a specially built model that can't be replaced. And there was hardly anything wrong with it, was there?
Well, that's life. When people actually want to get rid of their cars, this sort of thing seldom happens, does it?
Programme 15. Text 1. Back to school.
35 Manor Road, Harpole, Portsmouth, the 16th of September. Dear Mr. Harrison, Jamie is coming back to school on Monday, and my husband has asked me to explain the situation to you. Jamie has recovered from his bout of bronchitis now, but the doctor told us to keep him home for a few more days to be on the safe side. We hope he hasn't missed anything important since term began. We would like to ask you to watch over him for a while and not to let him take part in games or gymnastics for a week. This is on the doctor's advice. I enclose a note from him. Jamie is so keen on games that he will try to play before he is fit enough, unless someone keeps an eye on him. We have provided him with all the clothes on the list except the red athletics vests and the blue shorts. He has already grown out of last year's pair, but we only discovered this yesterday, and the local shop doesn't have any in stock. I shall get some next week and forward them by post. We were very pleased that Jamie took to boarding school life so well in his first year, and we trust he will continue to be happy. We are both very grateful to you for being so helpful last year, and we look forward to having another talk with you at the parent-teacher meeting next month. Yours sincerely, B. Williams, Mrs.
Text 2. A little more gossip.
I hear that the new people at number 35 send their boy to a private boarding school instead of the local school. What snobs they are.
They are, aren't they? I wouldn't dream of sending my little boy away to some strange institution for months on end every year. I think it's cruel.
It is, isn't it? It would break my heart every term. And the thing is that these private schools are often not as good as Free State schools.
They aren't, are they? My nephew only went to his local grammar school and he's just been awarded a scholarship to study classics at Oxford.
The Williams only send their boy away for the sake of appearances. They just like to show off.
Yes, they do, don't they? Of course, some people say that a boarding school education is good for children because it teaches them to have confidence in themselves. and they learn to be less dependent on their parents. But I think it only turns them into snobs.
It does, doesn't it? Still, I don't know what I'll do with my Trevor next year. I don't want him to go to that big new school. The children of all the commonest people in the area go there.
Well, they're closing all the old schools. If you don't like the new state school, you'll just have to pay to send him to a private school, won't you?
Text 3. The cost of appearances.
We really must buy some new clothes for Jamie. His best trousers are too small for him now, and most of his other pairs are not fit to be worn in public.
What about those nice brown trousers we bought for him in the spring?
He ripped a hole in those while he was climbing up a tree in the garden last month.
I told him not to wear decent clothes while he was playing about. I'll teach him to take more notice of what I say.
Oh, leave him alone. You keep ordering him to do this and do that, he's almost afraid to move.
Well, he's got to learn to behave properly sometime. Anyway, you've got a sewing machine and a pair of scissors. Why don't you mend them and alter some of his other trousers to fit him?
Certainly not. You can't send a boy to a good-class school in patched-up trousers.
All right, then. But we'll be broke by the end of the month at this rate. We've still got to get him some new pyjamas, a pair of blue shorts, and those red vests. Heaven only knows why he has to wear red vests. People will think he's joining the Labour Party or something.
Don't be silly. I'm more worried about his maths not improving than about the colour of his shirts.
And I'm more worried about paying the bills.
Programme 16. Text 1. English games. Squash.
Squash is another of those peculiarly English ball games. It was once confined to Britain and her colonies, and played almost exclusively by members of the upper classes. But it must now be one of the world's fastest-growing sports. The number of participants has increased 3- or 4-fold in the last few years, and new courts are springing up in almost every corner of the world. The court consists of a square room in which 2 players, equipped with rackets, similar in shape to tennis rackets, have to strike a small rubber ball. When a player strikes the ball, it may rebound from any of the 4 walls, but it must strike the front wall of the room before it touches the ground. His opponent then has to hit the ball in his turn. The ball must not bounce on the floor more than once before each player hits it. If a player fails to return the ball to the front wall, or to hit the ball before it bounces twice, he loses the point. One advantage of the game is that, since the court is covered, you don't have to rely on the weather. Moreover, you needn't be a great athlete, and it isn't necessary to possess exceptional coordination to play the game competently. At top level, players have to be extremely fit and talented, but the average person can get good exercise and enjoy himself thoroughly.
Text 2. Weight problem.
Did you have a good game, Jerry?
Splendid, but I'm dead beat now. I've got to sit down and have a rest, a cigarette and a drink.
How long have you been playing?
Only about 40 minutes, but I'm all in.
That's what I like about squash. You get more exercise in half an hour than you get in 2 hours from any other sport, and you enjoy yourself in the process. Of course I don't play myself now.
I must be losing weight. I've played 3 times this week, and I reckon I've sweated off a couple of pounds each time.
Yes, but how many beers do you have after the game? I always find I'm so thirsty after playing golf that I've got to drink 2 or 3 pints, and then I put on all the weight I lost during the round.
I suppose you're right. My waistline isn't getting any better. I'm only kidding myself, really.
Who did you play with?
That chap Ted Sykes. And I managed to beat him for the first time.
Did you? You must be improving. They say he's good enough for the club's second team.
Do they? Perhaps there's a chance for me, then. Have another beer on me. You haven't got to go yet, have you?
Well, I can't stay long. We're having dinner with some friends tonight, and Gertie will be wild if I'm late. Still, there's no need to rush. I'll have one more.
Good. Text 3. Orders.
Do you think I can borrow the car tonight, Mum?
No, you can't. Your father and I will be using it. We're going to the annual general meeting at the Bridge Club.
But they aren't holding the meeting tonight.
Aren't they? How do you know?
I heard Dad telling Mr. Jones it had been postponed for a month.
Well, he didn't mention it to me. If that's the case, you can use the car.
but you're not to cram it with too many of your friends again. There must have been 8 or 9 of you in it last week. You'll spoil the upholstery, and besides, it's against the law.
Well, Pete's car had broken down, so ours was the only one available. Anyway, there are only 7 of us this week.
That car's only meant to take 5 people. You are not to go far in it, or you'll break the springs.
We're only going to a party at Topsham. I'll drive slowly and gently.
Another of those parties. You're to be home at midnight, or your father and I will be worried to death that you've had a crash.
Mum, the party will hardly have started by midnight. Just go to sleep and forget about me.
If you're late in, you are not to make a noise. And you're not to drink any alcohol, or the police will stop you and you'll lose your licence.
For God's sake, Mum, you must think I'm 9 years old, not 19.
Programme 17. Text 1. Bedtime story.
Are you ready, David? Right. The Lost Coin. One afternoon, just before Christmas, an old gentleman was wandering through the city centre. The gaily illuminated shops were packed with good things and crowded with cheerful shoppers. The children were gazing in wonder at all the toys on display in the windows, and the old man was surveying the happy scene indulgently. Suddenly, in the middle of the throng, he spotted a dirty little boy sitting on the pavement, weeping bitterly. When the kind old man asked him why he was crying, the little boy told him that he had lost a 10-penny piece that his uncle had given him. Thrusting his hand into his pocket, the old man pulled out a handful of coins. He picked out a shiny new 10-penny piece and handed it to the child. "Thank you very much," said the little boy, and drying his eyes, he cheered up at once. An hour or so later, the old man was making his way back home by the same route. To his astonishment, he saw the same dirty little boy in precisely the same spot, crying just as bitterly as before. He went up to the boy and asked him if he had lost the 10 pence he had given him as well. The little boy told him that actually he had not lost a second coin, but he still could not find his first 10 pence. "If I could find my own 10 pence, he said tearfully, "I'd have 20 pence now. Did you like that?" Janet, he's asleep.
Text 2. Christmas preparations.
I'm nearly ready for Christmas now. I sent off all my Christmas cards except one, and I've bought all my presents apart from yours. Have you sent out the invitations to our party yet?
Not yet. I'll send them out tomorrow. Just look at the list again to make sure we haven't forgotten anyone.
We're inviting just about everybody in the street, except for the Jones family. Seems a bit rude, but to tell the truth, I can't stand that woman.
Well, she's so ill-mannered. Last time she came here, she left without saying a word. And apart from that, she tells such lies about us. She never stops running us down to the neighbours.
That's settled, then. We won't invite them. By the way, I met Pat O'Dowd last night, and he told me he'd be leaving for Ireland next week. He said he was sorry he would miss our party, but he might see us at the Rushtons' New Year party.
What a pity. He's so lively at parties. Oh, I saw some gorgeous Christmas trees on sale in the High Street, but I didn't have time to ask how much they were.
I'm sure they're much too expensive.
Well, we've got to have a tree. If you don't want to buy one, you'll have to go out and dig one up. Oh, and we need a few gifts for the tree. Apart from the holly and the mistletoe, that's about everything.
It's the same every year. You end up with everything you want, and I end up with a headache from worrying about my bank balance.
Text 3. A good sell.
What do you think of my new pullover, Ted?
Well, it's very nice as far as I can see, but put it on first, and then I'll tell you if it suits you.
I tried on about 20. This one isn't what I wanted, really.
Why did you buy it, then?
The salesman sold it to me before I realized what had happened. He just never stopped talking, and he told me some story about the latest fashion and special reductions. Before I could say anything, he'd wrapped it up and taken my money.
Well, it doesn't look too bad, but haven't you put it on inside out and back to front?
Really? Well, I can't tell the back from the front with these high-neck pullovers. I really wanted one with a V-neck.
It's a good thing it's got sleeves at the top, or you put it on upside down as well.
Still, I think it suits you quite well.
I went out to get a blue pullover with a V-neck, short sleeves and a pattern. And I came home with a brown one with a high neck, long sleeves and no pattern.
You must be too easy to take in. You've got to learn to stand up to these high-pressure salesmen. They'll sell you all sorts of things you don't want if you don't watch out.
Next time I'll send my wife. She'll probably sell something to the salesman.
Program 18. Text 1. Problem children.
Letters to the editor. Sir, teachers in some secondary schools in Britain are worried that their jobs may become impossible shortly unless something can be done to restore discipline in the classrooms. In the problem schools, mostly in large cities, a small minority of teenage pupils deliberately disrupt lessons to such an extent that the teachers can no longer teach their classes effectively. Some, within the teachers' unions, consider that the permissive nature of modern society is responsible. Small children who are continually encouraged to express their individuality without restriction are naturally reluctant to accept school discipline when they grow older. Furthermore, modern teaching techniques, which appear to stress personal enjoyment at the expense of serious academic work, might be teaching the child to put his own selfish interests before his duties to the community in which he lives. Perhaps the problem can be solved by improving facilities for the psychological guidance of these difficult children, or by better cooperation between the schools and the parents, for the parents may be mainly responsible for the aggressive behavior of their offspring. But some of us believe that there ought to be a return to more old-fashioned methods. At present, in some schools, teachers may not even slap a child who misbehaves. But I personally feel that caning should be reintroduced, and that this might produce the desired results. Ex-teacher, Beckenham.
Text 2. The missed bus.
Have another cup of tea before you go, Mrs. Jones.
I should be off, really. I want to catch the 10 o'clock bus into town, and it's nearly 2:45 already.
You may as well have another cup and catch the 10:30. You'd have to run to catch the 10 o'clock now, and you might miss it even then.
All right, then, thank you. And can I have another of those chocolate biscuits?
Of course you can. Here you are.
Did you read about that awful business at the new comprehensive school last week?
Yes, I did. A boy assaulted a teacher with a knife. Whatever next?
He ought to be given a good beating. They're too soft on children these days. The children can do what they like, and the teachers can't do anything to punish them. May I have another biscuit?
Of course. Help yourself. I don't know why they abolished corporal punishment. Things like that didn't happen when we were at school, because the teachers kept these hooligans under control by using a cane.
That's true. Oh, well, I must go now. Oh, dear. Is your clock right? It can't be 10 already.
I'm afraid it is. You've missed the 10:30 too now. You may as well stay here for a chat and go into town after lunch.
Yes, I might as well. But Mrs. Brown is expecting me. I really ought to ring her and tell her that I won't be turning up. Could I use your phone?
Certainly.
Text 3. One of those days. Morning, Steve.
Morning, Terry. Is Mr. Peters in yet?
I haven't seen him this morning, but he should be upstairs in his office by now. Slip up and see.
By the way, that is your green Ford at a parking meter outside, isn't it?
Yes? Why?
There's a traffic warden putting a parking ticket on it.
What? There can't be. The time hasn't run out yet. I only parked it there about 45 minutes ago.
Well, those meters are only for half an hour's parking, you know.
Blast. If I run down quickly and move it now, I wonder if I can talk him into removing the ticket.
There's no chance of that, Terry. These wardens never cancel a ticket once they've written it out.
Damn. It's just not my day today. I went to a party last night and had a hangover this morning. I tripped and twisted my ankle on the way downstairs. I mislaid my keys and spent 20 minutes finding them. And I left home without any breakfast because I was late. And now this.
Well, you shouldn't drink so much. But at least you don't have to worry about the car now. Since you'll have to pay the fine anyway, you might just as well leave it where it is for the rest of the morning.
I suppose that is a small, but I really ought to go back to bed.
Programme 19. Text 1. A formal complaint.
16 Manor Road, Harpole, Hants. The 22nd of January. The sales manager, Sparks Electrical Suppliers Limited, 13 South Street, Southampton. Dear Sir, on Tuesday you sent one of your fitters to install the dishwashing machine we purchased from your company recently. Although you had assured us that we would not have to pay extra for installation, your workman told us that we had to have a new tap and various electrical fittings before he could connect the machine up. Naturally, we had to take his word for it, and we told him to carry out the necessary work. The bill he presented us with afterwards seemed exorbitant, so we went through it and checked the prices of the items. We found that elsewhere the identical articles were little more than half the price he had charged us. Moreover, we have since discovered that we need not have had a new tap at all. We trust, therefore, that at your earliest convenience you will send another man to exchange the new tap for the old one again. We also hope that, after examining the enclosed bill carefully, you will see fit to reduce the prices considerably, as well as to deduct the price of the new tap. Yours faithfully, Mrs. C. Jones.
Text 2. Garages.
Did you take your car to Greenham's garage to be repaired, Bill?
Yes, the day before yesterday. It's in good shape again now. Apparently I needn't have worried about that terrible rattling noise underneath. It was only a loose wire and they fixed it in 2 minutes flat.
Was there anything else wrong?
Oh, yes. They found about a dozen other things that needed replacing.
That's always the way. You take the car in for one reason, and they find that everything else is wrong. In the end, you pay twice as much as you bargained for. But at least Greenham's people are fast workers.
Yes, thank goodness. We had to go to Birmingham yesterday, and I thought I'd have to hire a car or borrow someone else's. But my own car was ready in time, so I didn't need to hire one after all.
Of course, Greenham may be fast, but he's expensive too. I didn't have to go to him, of course. I think I'll try somewhere else next time something goes wrong.
It doesn't matter where else you try. All garages are expensive these days. You just have to pay up. There's nothing else you can do.
And sometimes you can't even be sure that they've done the job you've asked them to do. Last year, I had to take my car into a garage in Brighton for an emergency repair. And I wasn't even allowed to stand in the repair shop and watch while they did it. Union rules or something.
Well, they probably didn't want you to see how simple the job was before they gave you the bill.
Text 3. A flying visit.
Hello, Mike. Did you enjoy the weekend in Paris?
Yes, it was great, Mum. Look, I've brought you back some wine, and here are some cigarettes for Dad.
Thank you, dear. That's lovely. But you needn't have gone to that expense.
Well, I don't often buy you presents, but I don't often go to Paris either.
Tell me about it. What did you do with yourself?
Well, we had quite a good flight, and we got to the hotel at about 7 o'clock. We had a super dinner, and then Clive, Tim and I went to a nightclub.
Didn't anyone else go with you?
No, no one else wanted to come. All the others were too tired. Then on Saturday morning we did some shopping, and of course we watched the international rugby match in the afternoon. The match was drawn, but England were lucky not to lose.
Where else did you go? Didn't you look round the Louvre?
Yes, but it was a lightning visit. And we went up the Eiffel Tower too, of course. But we didn't have time for much else. We were told we were not to be late for check-in at the airport, and we had to rush like mad. When we got there, though, we found we needn't have hurried because takeoff had been delayed for an hour.
What else did you buy, then?
Let me see. A few souvenirs, some postcards, a bottle of perfume for Janet. Nothing much else because I ran out of money. By the way, can you lend me a couple of pounds until next week, Mum?
So that's the price of my French wine, is it?
Programme 20. Text 1. Mr. Williams' diary. The fire.
Sunday, February the 6th. It must have been after 2 o'clock in the morning when the last guests took their leave, and although we had enjoyed their company, my wife and I were quite thankful to shut the door behind them. We left all the dirty dishes and glasses as they were, and after opening a few windows to let some fresh air in and the smell of stale tobacco out, we climbed into bed and fell asleep. I couldn't have been asleep for more than half an hour when I awoke with a strong smell of smoke in my nostrils. Still half asleep, I staggered into the lounge, and there, through dense clouds of smoke, I saw that one of the curtains was on fire. I should have closed the windows then without delay, but instead I tried to beat out the flames with a folded newspaper. When this failed, I hastened into the kitchen to grab a bucket and fill it with water. At the same time, I shouted to Barbara, who hurriedly dialed 999 to summon the fire brigade before coming to my aid. We had to work at top speed, carrying buckets of water from the kitchen to prevent the flames, fanned by the breeze from the windows, from spreading. We were unable to extinguish the fire, but we managed to keep it partially in check until the arrival of the firemen. Fortunately, they arrived promptly, and they had little difficulty in putting out the flames. For most of the rest of the day, we worked hard.
Text 2. Mutual feelings.
Oh, look! It's snowing, Mrs. Smith.
So it is. I can't remember when it last snowed.
It snowed in April 2 years ago. It was Easter week. I remember it well.
Oh, yes, so it did. It must have been the second week in April. My sister from Scotland was here at the time.
What about the fire at the Williamses' house last Saturday? Did you see it?
Yes. Terrible, wasn't it? The fire engine woke me up at about 3 in the morning. They were lucky the whole house didn't burn down. Their living room was in an awful mess next morning.
Well, it serves them right. They were throwing another of those wild parties, weren't they? They must have been blind drunk. They should have been more careful.
You know, I think they may have set fire to the place on purpose, just to claim new furniture and carpets from the insurance company.
I wouldn't be surprised at anything they did. I've always been suspicious of them, and the longer I know them, the more I dislike them. I'm glad I didn't go to their party.
Why didn't you go, Mrs. Jones?
Well, we weren't invited, actually, but I had to go to my sister's that evening anyway.
We weren't invited either. I suspect that the longer they live here, the less they like us too, Mrs. Jones.
Text 3. Find the culprit.
Hello, Charles. I hear you had a bit of a fire after the party last week. Was there much damage?
Well, fortunately, we managed to confine all the damage to the one room, so it wasn't too bad, really. The carpets and curtains were ruined, and the walls and ceiling were blackened by smoke, so we had to redecorate the room completely.
It must have been a cigarette end, I suppose.
Yes, that's for sure. Someone must have dropped a cigarette on the carpet near the big window, and after we'd gone, the curtains caught fire. We ought to have checked everything before going to bed, I know, but we were so tired we decided to clear up in the morning. We shouldn't have left the windows open either.
Have you any idea who the culprit was? It was very careless of someone.
It might have been Ted Redman. He's a chain smoker, and he'd had 1 or 2 too many.
It can't have been me, anyway. I'm a non-smoker. But it may well have been old Bill Coleman. The more I think about it, the more I feel sure that he was standing by that window most of the time towards the end of the party.
So he was. And he's a careless sort of chap. He flicks his cigarette ash all over the place. And the more he drinks, the worse he gets.
Still, you can't very well accuse him of it. It could have been anyone.
True. Besides, I can't complain. Our room was repainted at the insurance